Yud, Mishnah Dalet. This Mishnah introduces a very important concept that a person intended to do a certain melacha. He intended to carry on Shabbos, and the Mishnah is going to tell us that he's only going to be chayav for doing this melacha if his initial intention of how to do the melacha was fulfilled. So, for example, he wants to do a ma'aser hitzah, and he wanted to carry a certain item which is going to be some sort of satchel, some sort of bag, which has got a strap on it, and it was round his neck, and he intended to carry it at his front, but instead the item, the article, the bag, flipped around and switched around to his back. Since that's not the way in which he intended to carry it, because the protection which he initially thought he would have, it would be at his front, and he'd be able to oversee it, and he'd be more vigilant, that's considered a shmira mu'ula, but he didn't actually perform that because he went around his back, and therefore the shmira is pechusa, it's an inferior type of protection. Therefore, since he didn't fulfill his initial intention of how to carry it, he's going to be potter. And it's a manifestation of the concept of meleches machsheves osra Torah, that a person is only going to be chayav for doing a ma'aser if he did it in the way in which he intended to do so. There are different aspects of what meleches machsheves actually means, but this is one aspect. He's not liable unless his intention has actually been fulfilled. So let's see the Mishnah. Hamischaven lahoitzi lefonov ubolo laacharov potter. Someone intended to carry an item in front of him, ubolo laacharov, but it slipped around behind him, then he's going to be potter. As I explained, he's wearing a satchel, a bag, and it's got a strap on it, and it was sitting in front of him. Since he could keep his eye on it, that's considered a shmira mu'ula, and then it flips around and it goes behind him, and that's considered a shmira pesucha. Therefore his intention, as it were, has not been fulfilled. Therefore he's going to be potter. But the other way around, la'achrov abolo lefonov chayiv. But if he intended originally to carry it by placing this thing around his back, so the shmira, the protection, would be inferior. He wouldn't be able to be as vigilant, as closely guarding of it as he would if it was in front of him. And then it flips around and it goes in front of him. Then he's going to be chayav, because then it's a superior type of carrying, and therefore we assume his intention has been fulfilled. That's how the Bartanura explains it. The Bartanura says, "Lefonov b'bolei lachar is potter, denischaven l'shmira mu'ula v'also b'yod l'shmira pechusa." He intended to have a superior type of protection, and what turned out was an inferior one. Then his potter. But la'achrav b'bolei lefonov is chayav. Why? Says the Bartanura, he intended an inferior type of shmira, but also beyond the shmira mula, then we assume he's going to be happy with it, and therefore he's chayav. Be'emes amru. Indeed, in truth, they said, the Bartanura in Mesechas Trumas, Perek Beis Mishnah Aleph says that whenever you use the phrase be'emes amru, it indicates some sort of masora, either a statement which is either min Torah or midrabanan, but the people who said it were of such stature that the statement that is about to come is sort of indisputable. That's what it means whenever it says be'emes amru. Be'emes amru, ha'isha ha'chogeres b'sinah, a woman who is wearing a sinor. Now the Mefarshim explain what a sinor is, give different explanations. Some explain it means some sort of apron. Some say it means some sort of michnasayim katanim, the Bartanura says, some sort of short trousers or the like. Either way, it's there for the protection, tznius of a lady. She's wearing this apron, let's call it. Whether this apron is worn at the front or at the back, she's going to be chayav. Now, in contrast to what we said at the beginning of the Mishnah, this sinar, this apron, or as the Bartanura would explain, an item which is attached to the michnasayim katanim, to this sinar, since the item is easy, it's sort of quite readily will slip around from the back to the front or the front to the back, therefore, whichever way she carries it, whether it started life at the front and then it went round to the back or the other way around, since that is quite a common occurrence, we assume that her machshava has been fulfilled, and therefore she has done a ma'aser hitzah and she's going to be chayeves. That's how the Bartanura learns. It says the Bartanura, sinar kein michnasayim katanim, some form of shorts or short trousers, chigeres oson tznius, which she wears for tznius purposes. Others, like I said, learn it's a type of apron. V'im tolsa bohen shum dom, if she attaches some item to these things, lahotzi, to carry it, or ba'lo letzad acher chayeves. Like I explained, because it's such a common occurrence for them to flip round, we assume that her machshava has been fulfilled, and therefore she's done a ma'aseh hitzah. Shekein royu lios choza, says the Bartanura, darko lios choza v'soviv sivosel. Its natural way is to sort of flip around. And she knew from the outset that that's what might well happen. This continues the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Af mekable piskin. That's true not just for a woman who's wearing a sinor, this apron, which might well flip around, but even, says Rabbi Yehuda, mekable piskin. Now, again, the commentators differ, but the underlying theme is that he's some sort of mailman, some sort of courier. The Bartanura says Shalmelech is delivering letters on behalf of the king, and he's carrying them. And the Bartanura explains in some form of hollow tube. Imagine, like we carry our Megillas nowadays. Many of us, if you have a cloth or a Megillah, they're rolled, and you place them in some sort of hollow tube made out of wood or metal, whatever it is, and you carry them. And imagine you've got this hollow tube, and you tie a belt from one end to the other, and you place it over your shoulder. Now, says Rabbi Yehuda, these piskin, these hollow tubes, which a person carries, it's very likely they're going to flip around from the front of a person to the back, or the other way around. And in the same way as an isha, hachagera sinna, a woman who's wearing this apron, that the apron might flip around from the back to the front, or the items on the apron attached to the sinna might flip around from the front to the back, so too, Rabbi Yehuda says, the courier, the one who's running to deliver these letters from the king or whoever, they might well slip round from the front to the back or vice versa, and therefore it doesn't make a difference, in contrast to the beginning of the Mishnah, that it doesn't make a difference. The Rabbi Yehuda would say that a person would be chayav, whether it started life at the front and went to the back, or the other way around, it doesn't make a difference. A person is going to be chayav because he knows from the outset that's how they're going to go, and therefore his machshava has been fulfilled. The Rabban, the Tanakama, however, argue with Rabbi Yehuda, and they say no, there's a difference between the Isha and the case of the Mekable Piskin. In the case of the Isha, it's inevitable it's going to flip around, and therefore that's her understanding at the outset, and she's going to be chayiv. Mashe Einkein, the Mekable Piskin, these couriers, it's much less likely for these items to flip around, and therefore if the courier ran with this belt around his neck and with this hollow carrying the letter at the front, and he ran and it suddenly flipped behind him, that's an unusual occurrence, and he didn't intend for that to happen, and therefore he'd be potter, because it's like Melechus Machshavas, his initial intention was not fulfilled, like we said at the beginning of the Mishnah. And the Bartanura and others say that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, rather the halacha is like the Tanakama, and therefore, whilst an Isha, Hachugera sinner, will be chayav, whether the apron started life at the front and went around the back, or the other way around, that Mekable Piskin, the couriers who carry these things, they will only be chayav if it started life at the back and went to the front, but not if it started life at the front and went to the back, because they never intended for that to happen, because it's an unusual occurrence, and they would be similar to the person who carries a satchel or bag, like we said at the beginning of the Mishnah, at his front, and then it went around the back, that he would be potter because his intention was not fulfilled. But if it was the other way around, if it started life at the back, and he went to the front, then presumably we assume he would be happy with that, because it's sort of been upgraded from a lower shmirah to a higher shmirah, and therefore a person would be happy with that. That is the end of Mishnah Dalet.